Thank you, blah, blah, blah. Hello, everyone. And hello, all those online as well. First, Simona and other speakers remind me to thank the rest of the world for learning my language, so I don't have to learn yours. I can tell you that I would not be able to speak intelligently in anyone else's language. It's an honor to share the stage with so many of my heroes. I'm a kind of new kid on the block with some maverick ideas for you. And I suppose I represent, there's a range of other people in the UK than Karen and Nick, who you know well. As a child psychiatrist and family therapist, I was an active denier of parental alienation until 8 years ago. My shame has led me to campaign. I decided I could do more for more people by creative thinking, writing and organising than by direct work with a handful of cases. I'm quite old unless you don't get okay. For decades, those who have fallen down the sinkhole of parental alienation have been shouting to get rescued and to change the world so other people don't fall in. However confident our PA expertise is now, the world still rather ignores our efforts. We know we've got a solid product to sell, but we don't seem to have a good shop window. Are there better ways? What should we do with the unjustified bad press? Naturally, faced with people down the sinkhole, you get on with rescuing victims. Everyone, sufferers, helpers, and most of us at this conference too, focuses on pulling bodies out downstream. That means we are locked in with family law. Yet, with respect to legal colleagues here, we all know that family law everywhere, though it's essential, is the worst system for this job that anyone could devise. A typewriter cannot juggle. Family law fabricates a new realm, in the countries I know anyway, a new realm of kangaroo court crimes and penalties that would never apply to parents and children under the actual laws of the land. Okay, maybe there are no better ideas than what we've got, but I say let's try. Let's look at new systems, more upstream prevention. Let's think harder to create a bigger map to see if we can come up with better ways. I don't claim my ideas are all new or that they will solve all kinds of PA in all countries or all the causal factors. I'm also interested in a much broader range of patterns and the severe ones that do come to court, because I think it's still pretty miserable for them. I aim only to encourage new thinking. The search for better ideas is valid, whatever you may think of my ideas. Okay, so how will we know when a new map works? Here's how. It'll help integrate thinking and approaches within our PA field of study. It'll liberate the best science research, training and intervention. It'll show PA cannot be our only focus, so the field and job will include all kinds of severe patterns. We will emphasize prevention as much as rescue and cure, and we will engage a wider audience of public and professionals. Ideological enemies will team up with a common rational purpose. I'm an idealist, in case you haven't noticed. Public, government, and professional awareness will fall into place so that we shape up better early information, guidance, and services. A system where lawyers and courts stop messing about and push parents to do their job, along with others who do know what they're doing. In the short time I've got, I'll skim through my recent Sutherland lecture on this topic, given to a mixed general audience, including various professionals new to the topic. And that neatly unpacks, in a short time, the key ideas I packed into it. I'll skate through the slides too, and you can read the details later. If you go to the website, I've got a card at the back if you don't know where that is. I engaged my audience at the start by sharing how grim this is, how we would all rather be somewhere else, hope that someone else is doing this difficult thinking and work. But someone else is not. So people mostly discover it only when they themselves fall down the alienation sinkhole. And of course I add my wider map. Next, I go straight into befriending our demon, coercion, and coercive people. I describe my own driven, overly helpful personality as valuable, but that it easily leads into being coercive. I use the Cartman drama triangle as a step to the striangulation triangle. Striangulation, a nice word for it, I think. A motif of an ubiquitous pattern that becomes harmful when there's no relief from it. Paradoxically, the greatest power now comes from joining a victim group. So we face a postmodern nightmare of gender ideology fiction treated as the only reality because everyone has to applaud or to be damned. I point out in my talk that coercion and coercive control can be done deliberately or unwittingly, with good or bad intentions, and have constructive or destructive outcomes. It's complicated. I note that we're about to look at some relentlessly helpful and caring people, parents. Parents who are so full of their need to be the carer that they exclude rivals. It ends up being their needs that are looked after by their children. It's how the parent secures an attachment for themselves. They're not doing it because they're evil, usually. I thought there'd be some. I remember I'm talking about a very broad spectrum, not the most severe case. You are here because you suffer the most severe. I'm wanting a much broader spectrum to be helpful. This unexpected opening is intended to engage the audience, to see harmful coercion as close to caring and to good intentions. So then I step straight into another muddy field, emotional abuse or psychological harm, as you call it in the States. The drama triangle becomes a triangle of emotionally abusive relationships. And I use the APSAC formulation that Amy Baker uses. You're not meant to read that blurred stuff, that's just to show you it's there. You can read it later when you go to the lecture. My grand plan then, just to show you what I'm heading for in this talk, is to blend together the term alienation. You could call it Fred, but for our purposes we want to call it alienation, you'll see why. Alienation is a good name for a more general strangulation pattern that is captured in the catchphrase, relationships that take you in and cut you off. I want a universal image, definition and concept to unite a wide range of harmful coercive patterns that have separate names and are certainly not yet part of the same club. To continue my speech, I refer to my TED talk that tells of my own shameful PA ignorance. Again, this is to get other ignorant professionals to follow my enlightenment, hopefully. To show just how broad-ranging my bigger map is, I refer to our Scottish campaign to influence government about general incompetence in the family law system. This is about all kinds of children and families that go through family law. I say that Scotland's child and family professions are also culpable because they have drifted away and need to get aware, involved, and upgrade their skills for this job. After this preamble around the bigger map, I go down the sinkhole. I want to switch on the right frame of mind that we're dealing with serious urgent harm to children, so I use an expanded heading of parental child abduction and alienation. I note that the outcome of severe alienation is exactly the same as abduction. I say this label means we know straight away what parental alienation is. It is slow child abduction, legally assisted child abduction. That we don't think or act as if it were that serious, I say it's like the blindness we had to past once hidden abuses. As for baby battering, domestic and child sexual abuse, everyone needs to become aware of PA. I illustrate abduction and alienation with excerpts from the video Victims of Another War. I guess many of you know that. We need to learn more from videos like this in order to see past the spurious happiness of an alienated child. So I refer to other, quotes, joyful victims of mind control. Cult recruits, jihadi suicide bombers, famous child abuse victims, physical abuse victims who died with a smile. Down the sinkhole, I summarize some familiar points about people. It happens with any gender pattern. I ask the audience to ponder how mothers who are alienated find nothing that helps them at Women's Aid, in Scotland anyway, but they do at Families Need Fathers. I say we need other theories than gender, and the modern attachment science works best. A lot of what Ronald Rona was saying is could be seen as attachment science in another framework, another language. We know that when attachments stop being a safe base, as when parents separate, things easily become a matter of life and death. That's what it's biologically designed to do. Get people attached so they're safe. Attachment-based assessment and help proving their worth. Now, I'm not referring to Craig Childress here, but Craig is in the same, I was going to say page, but let's say the same book anyway. Some, I say, are helped voluntarily, mild cases if you want, but severe cases need mandated or prescribed cooperation with a skilled child-focused family worker. I note that ordinary folk know of children turned against the parent. So there must be something in the training of professionals that breeds our ignorance. That topic needs a whole lecture. I explain how uninformed help can make things worse, how helpers always need to listen to their clients, but remember that the truth may lie elsewhere. Then I suggest a new way to take PA seriously, to be a theatre critic. I revise Gardner's features of classic PA to show they're all best understood, I suggest, as histrionic acting, an operatic plot, and a very poor script. Such a poor performance should be taken like an hysterical or conversion disorder, those of you who've got mental health training will know what that means, to be a drama based on an imaginary version of life, not what would actually happen. That's what all this science we've been hearing about tells us. I'm just putting it in a drama, in a theatre critic framework. We still need to be concerned about why the family had to do this, what they're trying to communicate. Often past unresolved attachment traumas are being reenacted. I was going to say a bit more about false allegations. I emphasize the terrible harm of false allegations, reported ones as well as the ones that are just gossipy. I emphasize that the realistic, ambiguous rejection of justified estrangement, listen to this, is just as important to take seriously so that we help those children and parents as well to work out the safest, best relationship possible with both parents. We can't say it's important to have a relationship with both parents and not bother about the ones whose parents abuse them, and who do, we know, want to have a relationship with them. I suggest we have to think about them and include them in our thinking. I introduced the broader category of parent refusal to pave the way for later in my speech. Whatever's going on, I say, parent refusal needs active help and intervention. I give a typical definition of PA as a three-party pattern, then list typical ideas that you here all know that are too simplistic, I won't go into them, and some conclusions that are clear, I won't go into those. I drop in a link between parent refusal and school refusal. I don't know if the whole world uses that term, but we can clarify it if you need to. I say we need to assess at least as thoroughly as we do with school refusal, each case in its own right. Then I answer the question, what do you do next? I say, you already know what to do. This is to a novice audience, I say that. Resisting seeing a parent is much more serious than a child resisting going to school to stay at home. Remarkably similar in pattern, they both require the same approach, I say. You pull together the picture with the child, their responsible parent or parents, and everyone else, and put together a plan as quick as possible. However many factors there are to sort out, the aim is the same. Get the relationship with a rejected school or rejected parent back on track. We know how to do that, the audience I'm speaking to anyway, with school refusal, but no one yet does the same with parent refusal. Nobody even thinks about it like that. So I say to my audience, we all need to learn more about parent refusal. Remember, I'm now talking about the broader category, not just PA. I suggest people refer to relevant agencies as questions of child welfare, any child's rejection of a parent, unambivalent or reasonable. We should refer any parent who seriously threatens that their ex is never going to see the children again if they they seriously threaten that as a child welfare problem. And lastly, maybe provocatively, I suggest you have to refer any parent who thinks it's okay to just walk away from their children. That tends to be accepted now. Then I return to the broader map. And I use this iconic picture again to focus on prevention being better than cure. Is that known across the world? Yes. I set out some suggested prevention of PA. Obviously, I'm going to suggest we change and minimize the tortuous kangaroo family law system. For now, it takes desperate people in on trust and cuts them off, taking their money on the way, in many ways like a cultic organization does. Sorry, lawyers, that's true. Parents in family courts are not charged with serious misdemeanors, and if they are, family court is not the right place to tackle it. Instead of inviting parents in to pay up to take their chances and game the system, let's get lawyers and courts to put back to parents their responsibility for sorting their own family decisions. I know that's not likely to happen in severe PA cases, but let's start where it should begin, with the parents. A problem-solving court can point families then to help or mandate it as necessary, with firm consequences lined up if parents can't or won't do their job. We're hearing in Romania, those firm consequences aren't very firm. I think the Republic of Ireland has got some really good system recently in place for this kind of consequence. One of the consequences will be more time with the other parent. That will be quite a good consequence. A neat idea is to establish early high priority. Here's a nice idea that I can't track down, but I believe it happens in some states in the United States. A neat idea is to establish early high priority of placing a child, all else being okay, with the parent assessed as best able to support their child's relationship with the other parent. Get it? That would turn the whole game on its head from the start, at least the start of legal proceedings. Culture can be reshaped. In many countries, the UN right of the child is for a family life with both parents. And we now have evidence, as we are hearing more and more about, that changes the old view that single-parent families are okay. A life with both parents benefits children in every measurable way before and after separation. Otherwise, and by the way, a lot of that research comes from Sweden. It's strange that Sweden has really good practice in many ways, but still PA is a blind spot. Otherwise, yes, everyone needs to learn more to spot these patterns early on and intervene early as well. Heading for the final section. I remind those who don't like negative words, because a lot of people and colleagues of mine would say, oh, that's such a negative word, how can you use that with people? So I remind them that alienation is a nasty thing. So a nasty name fits. Anyway, alienation, I argue, is a very respectable, I've studied this for several years trying to find an alternative. Alienation is a widely studied ancient word with relevant meanings for the loss and harm it causes. I shake the audience up into the new, bigger map. I set out the wide range of harmful coercive patterns in family and other groups. I propose alienation as the core pattern of all kinds of relationships that take you in and cut you off. I enter the lioness's den as an example of how the coercive control of domestic abuse, as defined in the new UK laws on domestic abuse, applies just as well to all the other coercive patterns and situations. Now, I can take a new moral high ground. I say we find this coercive abuse is in institutions and in cultic groups where it is more deeply hidden and more severe. In most couple and family abuse, the entrapped victim knows they're a victim. But the severe cultic pattern, and severe PA is one of those, typically requires a false self, a fabricated loyal identity that displaces the person's authentic identity and feelings. I say that's more severe. From the new moral high ground, I say, it's a shame to have excluded from the protection of the new laws all these other victims, victims who have suffered worse harm, victim groups who don't have such a powerful voice or as equal an opportunity as women's rights groups do. Then I show how in all these family and other group coercive relationships, it is attachment science that explains it best. This is Alex Stein's work on cults and how disorganized attachment mashes victims' minds up. Our understanding of neuroscience means that this is literally brainwashing. But a child's primary attachment to a parent means they're sitting ducks who will willingly do for love what the parent they're attached to needs them to do. They've been made to get rid of one parent, and they cling to the nearby parent thinking they're safe. This is what happens in cults. But actually that parent feeds their anxiety as cults do, rather than sorting it out as a good carer would. Children can't think clearly, so they just obey. So I say alienation is found across the wide range of harmful coercive relationships, but parental alienation is the only pattern that uses the word in its label. I invite people to learn, as I have, from the wider field of what's called undue influence. For example, from the Open Minds Foundation here. Some of us are members of that, I think. And I know we can't get rid of power in relationships, because a lot of people think that's what the answer is, get rid of all power and we'll be okay. But we know how to tell whether influence is constructive or destructive, as Steve Hassan's continuum chart shows. I say all these harmful patterns are emotional abuse that causes harm. So, come on. The relationship patterns cause mental health disorders and are caused by people with mental health disorders, but the pattern should be defined less tautologically than by its effects. Someone blocks your natural reactions and actions, I suggest. The cleaner definition is not just academic, given how people want to bring in upsetting things that are not harmful. The qualities that make it harmful are when it is systematic, sustained, and then trapping. Finally, I put together a powerful criticism of the voice of the child that brings in my ACE idea on the back of it. I don't need to explain to this audience how focusing on a child's wishes and feelings is the problem, not the solution. And the Romanian example shows you a very good example of how in the end that child's voice rules everything. I note that people of all ages are subject to influence of all kinds. I note that mature functioning adults can be recruited into coercive relationships and cults. Undue influence has no age limits. It must always be skillfully assessed. I bring in a transformative school refusal model of parent refusal. And I'm going to expand it for you here, because I've been working it out recently. But its power is that it needs little explanation. If you know about school refusal, which is a child who wants to stay at home, not the truant who wants to play with their pals behind the bike shed. I clarify school refusal from truancy, and that the rejected school is the equivalent of the rejected parent. I note the following features in school refusal. The parent is held to be fully responsible for their child and their school attendance, and for taking the initiative to sort it out. It's common knowledge to us in PA. Going to school is the norm, the law, and that goes up to school leaving age, not 12 years old or some younger time when somebody decides children can make their own decisions. A child's views and wishes are plainly not the main or deciding factor, however passionately they're expressed. Prompt parent-school communication and cooperation is expected and pursued. Even if there is alleged risk from bullies or teacher, working with the school continues as assessment and plans are made. Multi-factors are assessed, especially any alleged real or imagined sources of anxiety and separation anxiety. Relevant attachment history and patterns are understood. Anxiety disorder is tackled, not believed and sanctioned. Strong feelings are not taken as proof about a reality. In an informal but engaged, joined-up way, ideas, help and solutions are put together from anyone and everyone who can, family, community, school, and helpers. Natural or systemic thinking is not blocked by the compartmentalization and partial selective accounts so typical of adversarial family law. Even where it's informal, it's still adversarial. As much liaison and case discussion happens as is needed to create a progressive process and a collaborative plan with self-managed structure and roles, often with a key worker to actively coordinate everyone and to make things happen. If one plan doesn't work, another one is quickly created and tried out. With everyone engaged and getting on with solving it, emotional abuse is not an issue here. than school refusal, usually. Hefty fees are not involved in the UK anyway, so all children get this help, as they should, not just a select few who can afford it, or who can persuade the government to pay for their lawyers. Only rarely, and at the very end of trying everything else, might school refusal become a matter for higher authorities and even family courts. They come in, but at the very end. Homeschooling, which is the equivalent of terminal parent refusal, is a challenging, responsible option, not an easy one. You don't just get it by saying, I'm going to do it. So here's the thing. Compared to the identical pattern school refusal, in every single respect, family law and everyone deals with parent refusal in a diametrically opposite way. Remember that parent refusal is not just here. Most people are familiar with school refusal, how it is tackled, so they quickly compare, contrast, and apply that model to parent refusal. Even lawyers get it. 3 lessons from this. 1, a point-by-point comparison with the legal system shows why it's the wrong system. And it kind of shows that the mental health kind of system is the right one, or the community-based one. I'm not saying that will solve all problems, I'm just saying that's where we should be thinking, and that's how we should begin. The third point, the ultimate problem this shows, I think, is that society values schooling, but it isn't bothered much by a child's loss of a parent, even though we know how harmful that is to their lives. To finish, I wind down when I present this talk with reminders of attachment, just to get them on the right track again. 2 useful approaches, I think, are Crittenden's DMN, which people are using with DA as an objective assessment and shaping of the intervention afterwards. And also, I think Dan Hughes' neuroscience-based DDP is interesting because it reminds us that there's actual brain chemicals happening in the middle here. This is stuff that goes way before human beings were invented, and it's universal. So, that's my best shot at telling the world about our field. I think I meet many of the criteria I set out at the start, and if you have better ideas, please do share them. Thank you. Well, let's have some questions. Let's have some questions from that perspective. Who has a question? Okay.
Even Helen from Bergen in Norway. Thank you for a very good lecture. Talk provocative. One of your conclusions was that the legal system is the wrong system. And I quite agree. It's dysfunctional. But you say that the mental health and the therapeutic system is the best one. I think that it is a truth with some objections to it, because many therapists are trapped in these triangulations that you showed at the beginning. So I think that the therapeutic system might be the correct one, but only if it is able to perform systemic thinking and systemic-based therapy.
I agree. I agree that's the flaw in my picture. What I hope is that the school refusal model reminds therapists and mental health and other professionals of what they already do with a very similar pattern. So I'm hoping that will suddenly bring out their better side and their better skills with just a little bit of help.
I disagree. My disagreement is this. As a psychologist working in this field for 50 years, and as an attorney working for 25 years, I disagree. While the mental health system certainly seems like it would be appropriate, and the school refusal model certainly seems like a good model, I posit to you that when 2 parents cannot agree, and the child is in the middle, hold on there. And the child is in the middle. It is the responsibility of the state who regulates marriage. It is the responsibility of the state who regulates marriage to solve the problem, and we've been doing it that way since Solomon. So I posit to you that perhaps the better thing to do is to fix the difficult system, the difficult legal system. What say you?
I say you've got the advantage of me walking around with your microphone like you're in court. And I'm like the poor witness. I'm on the witness stand and I'm going to be sent to prison. I did aim to provoke thoughts, and there you are. I've achieved my aim. I didn't say the law wasn't required. I absolutely didn't say that. The trouble is when the law tries to help. When I went to see the chief sheriff, the judge in Scotland, to get him to bring Hamish Cameron, who knows about parental alienation, to teach the sheriffs, do some CPD, Tom Welsh, his name was, he says, well, I said, you know, it'd be really, that's very keen, you know, it'd be really helpful if help, he says, help. You don't think the courts are there to help, do you? He was teasing me, that he is correct. He says, we're there to apply the law justly. Now, I would say the law is very, very important, not to take on the help, which is what was proposed here, but to really put back straight away, rather than spend years and months doing all this stuff, it's pretend therapy and pretend mediation, in most cases that I know of. Put it back to the parents, and if the parents don't come back in 3 months having sorted it, with or without further help, then they get made to go and get help from people who do know. Now, I'm not saying they are the whole mental health system, I agree with the point made over there, but it seems to me that would quickly get in the likes of people who know how to help these families right at the front end. So I'm not saying the law is wrong, I'm just saying they're not qualified in most countries, and certainly not in Scotland, to do the job.
Okay, here's another question.
Yeah, so thank you both. My name is Dori, I'm a parent. In my opinion, there needs to be action right away. You cannot send an alienated child that has reported on alienation back home to the alienator. Simona talked about the child that went to hospital because of this. I think that was the lucky child, because we know what happened to it. The covert manipulation that is taking place, ending in extreme parental alienation, those kids are not lucky enough to be so obviously mistreated. We need intervention right away, and that cannot be some health care person. It has to be the law, and the abusers are so often even psychopaths. So they will stop at nothing. So what suggestion do you have?
Well, it's all over the world, and certainly this is a lesson Scotland is just beginning to learn. The court and other agencies, qualified professionals who know what to do, have to team up together. Yes. That's a whole universal thing. And so of course the law must place the right assessment and order, but then nothing's going to happen, as we were hearing in Romania, and I can tell you in Scotland, nothing happens if there's nobody there who knows how to make it happen. So in the United States you have parenting coordinators, and I imagine that that's what their role is partly to do. And then I think you have more specialist help for more difficult cases. I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, who's got another question? Just a second. Wait a minute. One in the back. All right. But I have to go to my countryman here who came all the way from Perth, Australia.
Absolutely. But in the case of Charles, the Rambus, I'm with Child. And I run an organisation in Australia called For Kids' Sake, and we're very much focused on keeping children out of family court. We've had a particularly bad example recently. I was in the national capital, Canberra, meeting lots and lots of politicians with a dad whose 4 children were killed down in Margaret River, south of Perth, by another family member. And ongoing family court proceedings is the leading common denominator of children being killed. There's one every 2 weeks in Australia, and the figures are not dissimilar in many other countries. But that's the tip of a large iceberg under which the phenomenon we're dealing with today, parental alienation, sits, where children are being harmed by the court process. So I do think the state has lots of responsibilities, and one of them is actually to keep children out of an institution that in most countries we know is causing harm to children, and we have no evidence that it's doing good. So absolutely, there are mechanisms. We have a responsibility to look after the children above the parents, and that means doing everything we can to coach parents, to use better mediation and other techniques to keep them out of court. So I absolutely applaud a non-court intervention.
Thank you. I'd love to hear much more how you envisage that happening in Australia, so that we can learn from that, but not just now.
Well, we're going to be talking in Australia in what is it, October? No, November, isn't it? October, yes. We're going to be talking about that. There's going to be another international conference in Tasmania, Australia, in October, and we're going to be dealing with specifically these issues. But a question.
I'm Eric Noel from Holland. Thank you for your talk. Wouldn't it be a good idea for judges who are judging and telling children to go 50-50 to both of the parents just after divorce as a start, instead of a few days with the dad or a few days with the mom, because it takes generally lots of months to sort things out, and then to go back to the judge and ask for changing the whole scheme again. It would be very, from a child's perspective, it is a loss of 50% or more of one parent in the daily life.
Yes, I have a colleague who's a member of PASG who is the boss of Families Meet Father Scotland, and his whole campaign is based on shared parenting. And he uses the Bergstrom research from Sweden to show the benefits of shared parenting, and right now there's a Scottish Government review into which he's suggesting the basic starting point should be 50-50. Now obviously not all parents can do 50-50, but that should be the assumption at the start.